From backstage, Spartacus can hear the roar of the crowd. He is about to make his debut as a Roman gladiator.
Spartacus fought as a Thracian. That's where he comes from. And so he has a sword, he has a shield. He's probably going to be up against other swordsmen.
Usually they were from the same barracks. And so you would be fighting against someone you'd trained with.
Which is a particularly cruel aspect of the Roman games.
The fights were fought in rounds, and it was a point system.
They're just trying to score points against each other, a bit like modern-day fencing.
You have two referees, the guy in the middle of the action and the guy on the outside of the action. Spartacus is quite dynamic, very fast.
Ruthless.
The Thracians were particularly hardened warriors. The Romans admired their courage in battle, which is not a surprise then that they would take the idea of the Thracian and put them in the arena fighting for the pleasure of the Roman crowd.
He was enormously charismatic.
You've got to entertain the audience.
You had to be spectacular. It was a spectacle. It doesn't matter if you can quickly dispatch a guy in a couple of minutes. You want him to go all the rounds, you want him to almost be losing, you want him to come back at the end, and you want a successful triumph.
So if a gladiator couldn't go on, his only option was to appeal for mercy. And so he would raise his finger. And it's up to the giver of the games whether he gives him mercy. And people would either shout out, let him go, or they'd say, kill him. And then the giver of the games would signal with a turned thumb whether there was going to be mercy or death. In Latin, the term is pollice verso, which just literally means a turned thumb. We would use it that thumbs down was death and thumbs up is they stay alive. But it's not actually clear in the sources what they mean. It could mean that thumbs down was turning down the request to have them killed. Thumbs up was actually sort of sticking the sword up in their throat. Or it might even be that it's a kind of turning of the thumb into the palm, which seems to have been some sort of symbol of mercy that you find in some religious contexts.
The sponsor of the games really has make the crowd happy. That's why the games are on. So if you're offside with the crowd as a gladiator, your time in the arena and your time in life is really, really numbered.
If Spartacus forced his opponent into submission, the host of the games would decide on the fate of the fallen fighter.
This idea that a loss meant death, it is an exceptionally rare form of fighting, just because the cost of the gladiator had to be recouped. You had to have somebody who was willing to pay out the gladiator's contract to the linista.
And in one law, we have a figure that cost would be 50 times the cost of hiring them.
And if in the first fight, Spartacus was to meet death or kill another gladiator, somebody's lost that investment.
Spartacus has won his first contest, but there is little to celebrate. He will return to a cycle of training and combat. Freedom, just a distant hope.
There will be gladiators who get injured either in the fight or in training. There will be others who die in the arena. So there's going to be always a steady sort of trickle of new recruits coming into the ludus.
For years, Spartacus's life is consumed with nothing more than training, fighting, and recovery. He dreams of finding a way out.
If you really impressed the crowd repeatedly as a gladiator, you could be given your freedom. You could be given at the rudis a wooden sword, which was a sign that you were no longer risking your life with real weapons, that you could retire and leave. But statistically, it must have been a very small number. Most gladiators either died or were so badly injured that they couldn't fight on.
Spartacus must have enormously resented his absence of freedom and terrible conditions in the training school.
Spartacus is a captured prisoner of war. He wants to be free, he wants to not be a gladiator.
Gladiatus is buying enslaved people as part of a broader slave trade. He will want to make as much money as he can from these people, so he has no intention of letting Spartacus go. It's possible a gladiator like Spartacus will have to fight until he dies. And it is this horrifying fact that we really have to keep in mind when we think of what is happening to Spartacus.
We could speculate that what he would like to do is return home to escape Italy itself, but he's trapped there. They can't get out of Italy.
And this starts something that no one is expecting. Spartacus manages to convince a bunch of his fellow gladiators that it is time to bust out of this place.
That now is their chance to fight for themselves, rather than to fight for the entertainment of the Romans.
They are highly trained and highly skilled fighters. That presents a problem for the lanista, because you have people that can fight against you.
But they were not equipped with weapons. The weapons were kept strictly separate from the men living there.
However, Spartacus was an opportunist. He managed to see an opportunity to escape and he took it. They were having something to eat, and he manages to get his hands on some weapons.
Utensils from the kitchens.
Cleavers and stakes.
And they overwhelmed the guards. What he'd learned fighting as a gladiator will have helped him escape from the ludus.
It's a daring escape Spartacus and his companion Crixus pull. It goes to show the gladiators, in fact, were trained to such a high level, they could outfight the guards 1-to-1. Over 70 of these gladiators in training escape.
His rebellion doesn't stop there. He doesn't just get out and think, great, I'm free, off I go.
They would have had the opportunity to leave Italy, to cross the Alps and to head homewards. But they don't.
It's a difficult path. It is this very narrow peninsula of a place. Because you've got to go over those mountains. And there's not many paths over those mountains. It's tough going, and you could be cut off really easily.
Possibly that was what he was trying to do. But certainly it seems that he changed his mind.
Spartacus wants to take on Rome for all that it's done. Of exploitation of the enslaved and of gladiators.
Spartacus decides to fight Rome in various different ways.
Spartacus's days of fighting as a gladiator are over. Instead of making the dangerous trip home, he remains in Italy. Soon, he will come face to face with the Roman forces that first enslaved him in a fight bigger than simply his own freedom.